Hey, it's Chris, Leisure Games. State of the channel, August 2022. I'm going to jump right into it. Skip over the preamble this time. Skip over the usual, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Everything, blah, 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 right? I've been in a state of reflection over the last couple weeks. And that's because just when I started to make this channel, again, I'll be frank with you guys, I didn't really expect it to go anywhere. I just have found myself really enjoying, loving talking about board games in general. The hobby, the collection, the crowdfunding, the retail, the in-betweens, the everything that goes along with it. And I said, hey, we'll see what happens. And here we are, almost 2 years later. And first up, I just want to say thank you. When I started this, I had grand designs and grand thoughts and premises and wanting to be a big name or wanting to have influence or wanting to have connections in the industry or things like that, right? That I think a lot of people do when they start something like this. But I've really realized that that's not really what I want out of this, right? I like talking about games, and I'd like to have just like everybody else, a bigger audience to talk to have some conversation with, to let them know my thoughts and feelings on things. But I'm also not one of those people that's probably ever going to be an insider. I'm not going to be somebody that's ever, obviously, doing this full time. I am full of imperfections, personally speaking, channel speaking, and everything in between, as you have obviously probably seen. And where this is coming from is really just, like I said, reflection over the last couple of weeks of, interactions, discussions, points that have been brought up, things that have come across my radar in those respects. I can't speak to anybody else, but I'd like to offer you a few insights into where I'm at currently from what I've seen as someone who sort of straddles the fence, right? On the hobbyist side of things, but also now as someone who makes content for stuff. And like I said, I'm never going to be someone that's doing this for monetary reasons. The slight bit of money that I get from this is vastly outweighed by the hours put into it from that aspect, right? Even if you include random things like this that get sent to me for review copy purposes, right? I mean, the balance is definitely not there. And I am never going to be one of those people. As much as I, grand design, imagine, oh, I'm going to be 20, 40,000. You know what? I'm just happy for engagement. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think I fooled myself for a while thinking that I was talking about engagement, but all the while really focusing on the numbers. And so I've really just, have some clarity on that side of things. Because at the same time, I'm not unique. I'm not terribly unique because I'm not terribly creative, right? Like, there are some people out there that are doing just absolutely creative things. There are some absolutely technically brilliant people out there, and I am not among either of those crowds, right? Like, the creativity gene skipped me and went on to my oldest. But from the aspect of, there are also some things that I just can't not talk about as well, right? There are things that I feel like at times within our hobby, just like other areas, that are sort of, sacred cows, if you will. Don't talk about this. Don't critique this sort of thing. Don't burn bridges by mentioning these things, right? Don't critique publishers. Don't mention other personalities. Don't critique things on crowdfunding pages like quotes that get put on there, because that's going to be interpreted as you, being rude or, throwing shade at them, right? Things like that. And I use that term very purposefully here, critique. Because nowadays, criticism is a very fine two-edged sword that people like to throw around. Either that people aren't critical enough, or that people can't be critical because you're, potentially, like I said, hurting the golden goose that feeds you in that sense. And, with things like this, like if I'm too critical of a publisher or a game in that sense, they're going to stop sending me things, or I'm going to be worried about that relationship. And, I love games, right? Going back to the beginning. And I love games, even if I step on some toes. And to be frank with you, again, I'm not saying I'm purposefully stepping on toes. But if I see something that I feel like needs to be talked about or needs to be called out about, I'm not just going to ignore it. We have so much hype and hyperbole and just dramatic escalations of things at all ends of the spectrum. Like, it's easier to stick your head in the sand and not say anything, right? Because I'm always worried about, the YouTube comments and the backlash and the messages being sent to me that you guys don't see and things like that, because believe me, it happens. And I clearly probably have stepped on some toes because, I've had a variety and a smattering of interactions while I've been doing this, right? People that respond to me and people that just don't respond to me anymore, or people that, sort of did but didn't. And it's just very interesting to kind of see where people sort of fall over time with those issues. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm horrible about returning messages. I'm very bad at it, to be frank with you, because part of my issue stems from just anxiety, right? Like, I see that email in response to whatever I sent out, or I see that message in response to what I sent out, and I get anxious about even clicking on it. So I avoid clicking on it for a few days, believe it or not. And that's actually the reason why, like, the last month or two in YouTube comment sections, if you guys have noticed that, like, my responses have been fewer, but they've also been further after the actual video and the content comes out, because I am trepidatious still opening that section, that folder of my email, which then links me to the YouTube comment section, because they all get scrolled together and I could just scroll through them and see one after another, after another, and another. And sometimes those are nice, and sometimes those are, YouTube comment section, not nice, being called things, being said things, and having critiques one way or the other, right? I'm too critical here, I'm not critical enough here, I should be doing this, I shouldn't be talking about this, I should be only focusing on this, I shouldn't be talking about this in the first place, this is inappropriate, this isn't the way you should play this game, this is the way you should play this game, you're clearly doing it wrong. All sorts of things like that. And again, no woe is me, no bitterness. I mean, that's, what I get for putting this out there to some extent. I'm also getting better at clicking hide that user from the channel as well, but that's the sort of thing to deal with. And, one of the other big insights that I had is, we're talking 6 months later now, right? To drag up, as much as I hate doing this, the Board Game Revolution crap from earlier in the year, right? I had several publishers reach out to me behind the scenes and say, hey, you know what? We've dealt with that issue. We've seen that issue firsthand. But we can't afford to publicly support you or publicly say anything, because we're still using them because of their reach, right? What's more interesting is that the companies that, again, just choose not to do anything with that, right? Like, this is a pattern of behavior. I had probably about 3 or 4 publishers reach out to me, but I probably had 24 people in the comments or privately messaging me. And so, things like that are just kind of, well, I don't know. Do people ignore that? Again, this is one of those sacred gooses that I'm going to get in the way of. Publishers, bottom lines, marketing, where does that fall, right? Capitalism, I guess. The other interesting aspect, just as an anecdote here, another story that I don't think I've told on this channel, is when I was just under 1,000 subscribers, I don't know how close, or just around there, it was recommended to me, plus or minus around that time too, especially, like, hey, reach out to people, try and collab with people, right? Try and get interviews, just try and talk to people. And so I did. I sent out like 3 or 4 emails to some people. And side anecdote here, I sent out an email to Will Wheaton's publicist. I said, you know what, that'd be awesome. You know what? Well, I'm just gonna send an email. And the publicist actually emailed me back and says, Will just doesn't do this stuff. And I said, oh, I said, well, thanks for even just responding, because I wasn't even expecting a response. But similarly, I sent an email to someone else that's, well known, and I'm gonna leave it at that. And I wasn't expecting a response, because frankly speaking, at that point, again, just like right now, I'm still no one. First off, the first response was that I got a response, which was shocking and surprising in that fact, right? The second response was actually even more shocking, because I said, hey, 20 minutes for an interview, for a conversation that I can, whatever, just about whatever, right? And the response was not like Will Wheaton's, because, again, I would absolutely just expect that, that makes sense, busy time, doesn't do that sort of thing, no thanks, not interested. No, the response was, I'm sorry, completely booked for the next 6 months solid, have no time in the next 6 months. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, oh, okay, sure. And then you see random thing pop up here, random thing pop up there, that's completely unplanned, that's completely clearly not in the plan of things. And I was just like, it was just disappointing, right? Because it's one thing to get the other, we just don't do this, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. It's another to kind of get stonewalled in a completely different way. And in that sense, that's sort of how this is no different than anything else that you've probably experienced in life, right? We've all had that, like at work and at home and at friends and whatever it may be, right? And so, just an interesting illustration that I've never really talked about, which happened, almost well over, actually, over a year and a half ago, probably at this point. And I've just always kept that in the back of my mind as, sort of what to expect. And so I don't also get my expectations up with any of these situations either. And again, you know what? I'm glib. I am not perfect. I am, horrible at some of the nuances and making sure I don't try and, inadvertently say things I shouldn't. I mean, again, I'm not very good at that sort of thing. This is what you see is what you get. It's sort of unfiltered in that sense. Edited slightly, but also just this is me. I've apologized for several of those things that I've done on the channel that have made me look absolutely ridiculous, because the other aspect of this is that, this, when something like that happens, it's absolutely terrifyingly embarrassing, right? Like significant embarrassment, like turn my face red, splotchy sort of embarrassment, because yeah, I'm one of those people, like I get super flushed and things like that. And yeah, so just been, that sort of thing. Now, going back to the very beginning, is this going to change how the channel is run? No, not really. Like, I like doing what I'm doing. And so even if none of you were watching, or a fraction of you are even going to view this, I'm completely okay with that. But I wanted to let you know a little bit more insight, a little bit more thought on kind of where I'm at from that sense, if that makes sense. So I'm going to be just doing more stuff. Like, I like talking about games. I'm going to be talking about reviews of things. I'm going to be talking about turn by turn, game situations of what you need to know. I'm still going to do the crowdfunding, I like doing all of this stuff. Where is it going to lead me? Who knows? If it leads me absolutely nowhere else, you know what? I'm completely okay with that. And if it does lead me somewhere else too, great. Great for that. Because I'm just kind of happy doing about this, It's one of those things where I never want to get in front of the camera. Every night I do this, I go, I really don't want to do anything tonight. And then I sit down in front of the camera and I just boom it out, Sort of like I was always that kid when there was a test, right? I got huge butterflies, the night before, the hour before. And then once I was in the test doing the things, I was boom. And it's sort of like this too. So I just appreciate you guys putting up with me and taking the time to deal with me for this long. And we'll see where it takes us. So there you go. Thoughts, comments, questions, let me know down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching in the first place. You know what to do. I'll say it anyway. Stay classy. See you around. And you know what? Maybe I'll throw some merch out there. I'm terrified to do that too, as a side note at the very end here. Like, I'm terrified to even reach out to some of these like merchandise places, because I'm like, this is a logistical headache. No one's gonna want to buy my merchandise. It's super embarrassing if you put it out there and no one wants it in the first place. And so anyway, I'm done. Peace out.